The hours aren't going fast enough. Saturday, game one, 5:30, right here, Sactown Sports, 1140. Kings, Warriors, game one. Dave, it's like being in school. It is for real. It's like being in school in that class you didn't like, or most all the classes. And I kept looking at the clock going, okay, it's almost, no, I still got 40 minutes. Okay, I got 38 minutes. I got 37 minutes.
The scariest part of every roller coaster ride is the wait in line.
Yep.
Here we are. Jason, should we have our guest here?
Yes, we are ready to roll.
All right. Well, I'll save that question. You go ahead. Let him in. Red carpet.
Red carpet time. Let's welcome in our first guest of the show today, John Dickinson from 95.7 The Game, one of our own, formerly here of KHTK, covers the Warriors. He's a host down there at 95.7 The Game. John, you're on with Jason Ross, Carmichael Dave. Good morning. How are you, John?
What's going on, fellas? Good to be with you. You guys still claim me?
We claim you, right?
Really?
Don't we, Dave?
Okay. Yeah, good to be with you, John.
Good to be with you, Dave.
We claim all, it's John, and you know how Sacramento works. Like once a king, always a king. Once a KHTK, always a KHTK. But now, maybe we feud this week because now you're leaning Warriors. Maybe we don't talk after this interview. I don't know how it goes. It's the rivalry, right?
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. What is the storyline though that you're looking forward to most in a storyline that has so many connections between the Kings and the Warriors? What's the one that you're most excited for?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be fascinating. There's almost too many to count. Whether it's Mike Brown going from the Warriors to Sacramento and finally being able to be the head coach to turn them around. Whether it's the Kings, who I think believe they're an up and coming team that maybe could make some hay and do damage the way that the Warriors did a decade or so ago, right? Could they be the new kind of hot, flashy team on the come here? And they've had such a great season, and a season where they valued the regular season when so many teams really didn't. And that's part of the story as to why they were with the third seed. But then their reward for the third seed is you got to play a team like the Warriors that's won 18 consecutive Western Conference series and doesn't have home court advantage, but has won 27 consecutive series with at least one road win. Every single series where Steph, Clay, and Draymond have been together, and you're getting the defending champion as well, and everything that goes along with that. And you'd think it would be a motivated defending champion, obviously, after kind of sleepwalking at times in the regular season.
John Dickinson with us. John, Steve Kerr has yet to lose a playoff series to a Western Conference opponent. That's the amazing statistic, if you will, that's going around. So I'll ask you a cookie cutter sports radio question. If that streak comes to an end against the Sacramento Kings, how will the Kings have done it, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think a lot of it stems from the fact that the Warriors would probably not play buttoned up enough. And I think that is the Kings making them not play buttoned up enough. The Kings do, I think, when they play well, do things that coincide with things that the Warriors don't do well when the Warriors don't play well. They take bad shots. Their transition defense is horrible. There's a lot of the turnovers as well. I mean, the areas in which the Kings excel, sometimes the Warriors can get beat in the paint. Domantas Sabonis can beat them in the paint. Sometimes they overhelp off of shooters. You do that, the Kings have plenty of shooters who are comfortable knocking them down. And I think there's a relentlessness to the Kings that has been underreported or underknown, probably just based on the fact that a lot of the national media, maybe a good chunk of the Bay Area media, haven't seen them play on night in, night out basis, and that no game is really ever over. And one of the storylines of this Warriors season, and I'll just compare it to the Kings, the Warriors have not been great in close games, and they have not been great in close games on the road, but they've also kicked away some leads in games where they never would have done in prior years. And so the Kings, as you guys know, have been able to steal some games in ways that have been pretty spectacular. And so I think if the Kings are going to win this series, they're going to have to show the first couple of games that they're in it and they can go toe-to-toe. But their strengths at times, while they look like Warrior strengths, have actually been the kinds of things that the Warriors have struggled with. So I think in that sense, it's a pretty good matchup. We're
talking with John Dickinson, 95.7 The Game in the Bay. John, the I don't know if it's X factor. The mystery, let's say, of the series is Andrew Wiggins. Last year, their success, he was incredible. He had a great postseason run, a great finals. He's been out for a considerable amount of time. He will be back reportedly. What version of Wiggins will we see, and how will that impact kind of Kerr's rotations and the depth chart there?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it remains to be seen whether or not he will start or not, number one, and number two, whether he will be able to play the full 30 to 35 minutes that the Warriors are used to having him play. I would anticipate he's probably not going to be able, at least at the beginning of the series, to be playing 30 to 35 minutes. But I do think he's somebody that the Warriors, because he's played so well, and that Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, Kevon Looney starting lineup, when they played together, was still among the best, if not the five-man group in the NBA. Even this season, when the Warriors had so many other lineups that struggled and so many other different combinations of players that they were forced to play together. So I think they would look to try and do everything they can this week, and they'll be on the practice floor formally, I think, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the next couple of days gearing up for this thing. But I think the plan would be to get Wiggins back into the starting lineup with the other, big three guys and Kevon Looney. If not, I could also see them rolling with Dante DiVincenzo as they have of late. You got to start Looney against Sabonis. So I think the question, and sometimes the Warriors play around with the center spot, I think Looney will be out there for sure. Wiggins or DiVincenzo, but I think the fact that Wiggins and Gary Payton II both don't play a lot of minutes or may not be able to play a lot of minutes. Payton, while really good defensively, is in the 15 to 17 to 20 range. And so those minutes have to be covered from somewhere. Wiggins, I think, is part of it. I think Jonathan Kuminga is the wild card, the second-year guy who's just extremely athletic and I think has the potential to score when he stays within the framework of the offense in ways that potentially could hurt the Kings on cuts and dunk and transition and things like that, where the Kings can really get hit in the mouth of the paint in a big way by ball movement and cutting and things like that. But I think he's the guy that may be the odd man out if Wiggins is playing a lot. But if Wiggins can't quite play a lot, I think he's somebody that maybe plays a little bit more at the four spot, with DiVincenzo playing some three. And really DiVincenzo and Klay Thompson kind of flip-flop between 2 and 3. But Wiggins was the Warriors' second-best player last year in the playoffs. I don't think there was much doubt after Steph. And in this series specifically, he's huge because I think if he is in the starting lineup, is the primary defender for De'Aaron Fox. And he's one of those guys where no matter who the Warriors play, he would guard Fox, he would guard Morant, he would guard Kawhi, and he would guard Kevin Durant. So when we're all talking about who are they going to play, they need Wiggins to basically be able to hold up and stand up against any of these teams defensively, whether it's the quick point guard or the wing that can kind of do it all.
John Dickinson with us. John, I'm not a fan of comparing eras statistically because the game changes, but I do think you can look at some psychology and maybe buy into it. We've talked about this, Jason and I, when you look at, for example, the 2000s Lakers, or really most dynasties, there's this sense eventually where the veterans who have played 20, 30 more games a year than everybody else, winning championships, as Draymond said, they get bored in the regular season. It's hard to get up for the regular season. Then all of a sudden the playoffs come and magically everyone's healthy and they're all in full fifth gear. Do you buy that at all when it comes to some of the Warriors issues this year? Just boredom.
I think some of it was that. I think it was also part Steph Curry missed 26 games and Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole in training camp, and there was a little bit of an awkwardness they had to work through as far as all that goes. I think some of it was that, in particular on the road. I think they tinkered around with their rotation early in the year. They, I think, went into the season intending, Dave, to play a lot of their younger players, Kuminga and Moody, James Wiseman, before they traded him to Detroit as regular rotation players. And it just didn't work. There was a disconnect between that next generation of Warrior player and the OGs. And it got to the point where early in the year, they had an 0-5 road trip where they couldn't beat Orlando and they couldn't beat Detroit, and they lost to Charlotte, and they just were terrible late in games. And it was basically the OGs wanted to coast, and win games the way the Kings were winning games, 125, 120, 130, 125. But they weren't putting in nearly enough defensive effort early, and then the young guys were wrecking them when they were playing in regular rotation. And so Steve Kerr went away from that and started playing the veterans and basically buried the young guys for a while. They got their record back on track, and then right as they got their record back on track, Wiggins went out, and then Curry went out. And then they were holding on for dear life, trying to just get 5 team. And then right as they would get guys back, they would kind of go back into this lull of a lot of road games and maybe not being motivated. And so they were on the yo-yo of not really motivated, and they get motivated, and then guys would get hurt, and so they would be kind of mediocre or mid at that point, and then they would get it together, and then more guys would get hurt, and then they would tell you that these 8 of the last 10 were the ones, 8 of the last 10 that go into the playoffs, that's more who they really are. However, even some of the road games in that stretch, Dallas, who ended up not making it, they were a joke. Houston, Portland quit a month ago and played nobody. The Kings played nobody against them on Friday, as you guys know. So a lot of these road games, a little bit, hey, they didn't really do a lot. And in a lot of the home games, they get down 10 or 15 before they start playing and have been fortunate enough to be able to come back. I'll tell you one thing they can't do in this series. You can't come home, whether it's 1-1 or whatever the heck it is, and get down 15-20 to the Kings, because they'll just score on you. Mm-hmm. And I think at that point the Warriors would be like, oh, damn, like we can't flip a switch in an individual game like we could against the Pelicans or the Timberwolves or some of these other teams.
Well, it's going to be fun. I know we're all excited for it. I know we'll see you up at these games here, John. Thank you so much for giving us a preview, and we look forward to seeing you out at the arena.
All right, you got it, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. That is John Dickinson sharing some really good insight